My daughter left her iPhone 15 Pro at my house. It vibrated, and on the screen appeared a photo of my husband, dead 5 years now. When I opened the message, my heart almost stopped. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. Morning light slipped through the big pane in my Lake Washington kitchen, laying a cool, damp shadow across the white stone counter where Richard and I began our days for 43 years. 5 years have passed since his memorial, yet every morning I still set out 2 cappuccinos before I remember. Old habits die hard. At 68, I've learned grief doesn't fade. It turns into furniture in the rooms of your heart. I was washing those 2 cups, hands sunk in warm, soapy water, when I heard the buzz. At first I thought it was the heat pump on the deck. Long Seattle rains make everything hum, machines working to warm the air before the lake wind arrives. But the sound came again, persistent, mechanical. A phone skittering against the wood of the low cabinet by the sliding glass door. "Hello?" I called, drying my hands on a dish towel. "Did someone forget something?" Silence answered. My daughter, Olivia, had left just 20 minutes earlier after our Tuesday morning visit. She comes every week like clockwork, supposedly to check on me, though I suspect it's more about appearances than concern. Olivia is always polished, perfect, the kind of woman who color coordinates both her calendar and her closet and never has a hair out of place. The phone buzzed again. I walked to the cabinet, my knees protesting. The device lay face up, screen bright. My breath caught. Richard's face smiled up at me. Not a photo from our albums. This one was different. Richard wore a navy shirt I'd never seen, standing on a yacht deck I didn't recognize. His smile was broader than it had been in those last years. The image was attached to an incoming text. My hand trembled as I reached for the phone. I shouldn't look. I knew that, even as my fingers closed around it. Privacy, a line I'd always respected. But that was my husband's face. My dead husband, younger, happier, more alive than he'd been at the end. The preview sat under his photo. Tuesday again, same time. I'm counting the minutes until I can hold you. The room tilted. I gripped the cabinet edge, my other hand still clutching Olivia's phone. The words swam, refusing to settle. Tuesday, same time, counting the minutes. It wasn't an old text. The timestamp read 9:47 a.m. Minutes ago. Someone was texting Olivia. Someone using Richard's photo. Someone who met her on Tuesdays. My mind ran through possibilities, each worse than the last. A prank? A cruel joke? But who would do that? And why use Richard's image? I should put the phone down. I should call Olivia, tell her she forgot it, let her come back. Instead, I unlocked the screen. Olivia has never been careful with security. I've watched her enter the passcode a dozen times. Her daughter's birthday, my granddaughter Sophie's special day, 4 digits, 0815, August 15th. The phone opened without a fight. I slid into messages with shaking fingers. The contact was saved as P, just a letter, nothing more. But the thread ran back months, maybe years. I scrolled. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Wear the purple dress I love. Thank you for last night. You make me feel alive again. Your husband suspects nothing. We're safe. Your husband, my son-in-law Daniel. Olivia's husband of 15 years, father of my granddaughter, the boy who helped Richard rebuild the boathouse when he was 19. I sank into the chair by the glass. Richard's wedding gift to me. A hand-carved oak piece he spent 3 months perfecting. The phone burned in my palm, hot with secrets I never wanted to know. The early messages were different. Careful planning. Same place as always. The lake house is perfect. She never suspects. Make sure the old woman doesn't see us. She's sharper than she looks. The old woman. Me. They'd been meeting here. In my home. Right under my nose. I scrolled, heart hammering. Then I found it. A message that stopped the world. I still have some of his things at Chelan View Lodge. Want me to toss them or keep them as souvenirs? His things. Richard's things. Olivia's reply. Dated 3 months after Richard's memorial. Keep them. I like sleeping in the shirts he left there. They smell like him. Like us. like those afternoons when Evelyn thought you were meeting an old partner. The phone slid from my numb fingers and clattered to the floor. No, this couldn't be real. Olivia and that man. My daughter and someone else. Impossible. Obscene. A violation of everything I believed about my life, my children's marriage, my family. But the evidence glowed on the screen. Undeniable. How long? When did it start? Those Tuesday afternoons when Richard said he was seeing an old friend in Bellevue, was he near them instead? That friend left the city 2 years ago, taking any chance of easy confirmation to a quiet grave. I picked up the phone with trembling hands and forced myself to read. There were photos, dozens, hidden in a separate folder I found by accident. A man and Olivia together, his arm around her waist, Olivia kissing his cheek, my lake house visible in the background of several shots, my wood porch, rain-dark steps, the window of my bedroom. They'd been together here. One photo showed them in my boathouse, Olivia in a thin shirt, laughing at something outside the frame. The timestamp read, July 2019, 5 months before Richard's stroke. 5 months before I sat by his hospital bed, holding his hand, whispering that I loved him, that it would be all right. Were his last thoughts of her, of Olivia, instead of me? A new message flashed, making me jump. Did you forget your phone? Daniel just called my cell asking if I'd seen you. I told him you were probably in a meeting. Get your phone and call him back before he gets suspicious. P again. The same sender using Richard's photo. But Richard was dead. So who was P? My mind tried to solve the riddle even as my heart fractured into pieces. Someone was continuing Richard's affair with Olivia. Someone who knew about them. Someone with access to Richard's photos, his things, his secrets. I heard tires on the road, the silver SUV. Olivia, back for the phone she'd forgotten. I had maybe 30 seconds to decide. Confront her now with nothing but shock and pain as weapons, or stay silent. Learn more. Understand the full shape of this betrayal before I showed my hand. The doorbell rang. I looked at the phone in my palm, then at the door, then back to the screen. Another message blinked onto it. I love you. See you tonight. Chelan View Lodge. I'll bring wine. Chelan. More lies. More betrayal. More secrets. I made my choice. Coming, I called, my voice steady. To my surprise, I slipped Olivia's phone into my apron pocket, grabbed a dish towel, and opened the door with a smile I didn't feel. Olivia, sweetheart, did you forget something? She stood on my glassed-in porch, composed as always, but I saw something new in her eyes, something I'd missed before. Calculation, weariness, the look of someone guarding a secret. My phone, she said, smiling. I'm scattered today. Is it here? I haven't seen it, I lied smoothly, surprising myself. Come in, help me look. As she stepped past me, her perfume trailed behind, the same scent I'd smelled on Richard's shirts in those final years, and something shifted inside me. The grief-stricken widow was gone. In her place stood someone harder, sharper, dangerous, someone who would pry up every floorboard until the truth surfaced, someone who would make them all pay. Let's check the kitchen, I said pleasantly, closing the door. I'm sure it'll turn up. But the phone stayed hidden in my apron pocket, warm at my hip, heavy with secrets that could tear my family apart, and I intended to find every single one. Olivia searched my kitchen with the thoroughness of someone hunting for more than a phone. She opened drawers, peered behind the toaster, even checked the bread box. I watched her, my hand resting in my apron pocket, fingers curled around the device. That's so strange, she said, straightening with a worried look. I could have sworn I left it on the cabinet. Maybe you took it with you and it's in your car, I offered lightly. The helpful mother. Nothing more. Maybe, she said, unconvinced. Her gaze skimmed the room once more, and I saw it pause on my apron pocket for a fraction too long. She knows, I thought, or suspects. Well, I should go, Olivia said at last, her smile not reaching her eyes. Daniel wants me home before lunch. If I find it, I'll call you right away, I promised. After she left, I stood at the glass door and watched her SUV drift down the hill and disappear. Only then did I pull out the phone and sink into Richard's chair, my hands shaking as I kept reading. The thread ran 4 years. 4 years of lies. 4 years of secret meetings, my husband and my daughter betraying my son-in-law, and me. The early messages were cautious, almost businesslike. Then they changed. Intimate. Fevered. Richard wrote things to Olivia I'd forgotten he could feel. You make me remember what it's like to be wanted. Evelyn looks at me like I'm already dead. That one hurt worst of all. Had I done that? Had I stopped seeing him, really seeing him, somewhere along the way? But that didn't excuse this. Nothing excused this. I found references to Chelan View Lodge, a place Richard had supposedly sold years ago, or so he told me. More digging surfaced GPS coordinates embedded in a photo. Richard and Olivia hadn't been careful about metadata. I copied the numbers into my own phone. Lake Chelan area, hours east, close enough for afternoon rendezvous, far enough they'd never run into anyone we knew. But I still didn't know who P was, the man who'd stepped into Richard's role in this sick arrangement. My phone rang, making me jump. Daniel's name lit the screen. "Hi, sweetheart," I answered, forcing normal into my voice. "Mom, have you seen Olivia? She's not answering her phone." Because it's in my pocket. "I thought she was there this morning, but she left hours ago." "Maybe her battery died." "Maybe." He sounded strained. "Look, I need to talk to you about something. Can I come by tonight?" My heart spiked. "Of course. Is everything all right?" A long pause. "We'll talk later. Love you, Mom." He hung up before I could answer. I stared at Olivia's phone, then at mine. What did Daniel want to talk about? Did he know something? Suspect something? I needed information, and I needed it fast. But investigating your own family requires delicacy. One wrong move and they close ranks, hide evidence, and gaslight you into believing you're a paranoid old woman losing her grip. I'd seen it happen across the dock to Sandra Matthews. Her daughter-in-law stole from her for years. When Sandra finally spoke up, the family had her declared incompetent and put her in a care facility. She died there 6 months later, still insisting she'd been robbed. No, I had to be smarter. I spent the afternoon making a plan. First, secure evidence. I connected Olivia's phone to my laptop, a skill my granddaughter Sophie taught me during the lockdown, and backed up everything. Photos, messages, all of it. I saved a copy to an SSD and hid it in a sandalwood music box on my bookshelf, one of Richard's old keepsakes no one ever opened. Then I tackled P. I reread the messages, hunting for clues. P was a man, obvious from his voice. He knew about Richard and Olivia, new details. The messages began just 2 months after Richard's memorial, as if someone had been waiting for him to die. "I can give you everything he couldn't. I'm younger, stronger. I won't die on you." Cruel, but revealing. P knew Richard was sick, knew about his heart. I made a list. Richard's friends, finance contacts, someone from the tech crowd. Then I found it. The line that froze my blood. A 3-year-old text from Richard to Olivia. "Patrick keeps asking where I go on Tuesdays. I think he's following me. We need to be more careful. Patrick." P. Patrick was an old friend of Richard's, a freelance finance specialist. I sat back as the implications washed over me. 39, married, 2 kids, Seattle-based. He dropped by now and then, always pleasant, always helpful. When one of Richard's old projects wound down, Patrick handled the paperwork, sorted the files. Had he found proof of the affair then? Or had he known all along? The front door opened without a knock. Only Daniel had a key. Only he would let himself in. I barely had time to shove Olivia's phone under a sofa cushion before my son-in-law filled the doorway. He looked awful, pale, unshaven, shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it. "Daniel, what's wrong?" He collapsed into the chair across from me, head in his hands. "Mom, I think Olivia's having an affair." The irony was almost too much. I kept my face carefully neutral. "What makes you think that?" "She's been distant for months, years maybe. She disappears on Tuesdays, says yoga or the office, but I checked our credit card statements. No gym charges, no Tuesday receipts. He looked up, eyes rimmed red. I feel like I'm going crazy. Am I being paranoid? No, I said softly. You're not. He stared at me. You know something. I found her phone, I admitted, pulling it from under the cushion. She left it here this morning. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. I watched emotions cross his face. Hope I was wrong. Fear I was right. Dread of what he was about to learn. I wanted to protect him, my son-in-law, my granddaughter's father. But he deserved the truth. It's bad, isn't it? He whispered. I handed him the phone. Passcode is Sophie's birthday. While he read, I made tea. Neither of us would drink. I heard the gasp, the curse, something like a sob. When I came back, he was white and shaking. Dad, he said hoarsely. She was sleeping with Dad, my wife and my father-in-law. How long? He couldn't finish the sentence. 4 years from what I can tell, maybe longer. And after he died, too. Who's P? I think it's Patrick. Patrick Hale, your dad's old friend. Daniel's face twisted with rage. That bastard! I'll kill him. I'll kill them both. No. My voice was sharp, commanding. You're not doing anything rash. We have to think. Think? Mom, they destroyed our family. Dad betrayed you. Betrayed me. Olivia's been lying to my face for years. And Patrick... He stood, pacing. What's left to think about? I want a divorce. I want them exposed. I want everyone to know. And then what? I asked, calm. Olivia takes half of everything in the divorce. She might even fight for full custody of Sophie if she paints you as unstable. Patrick denies it all. There's no direct proof tying him to P, just a letter. You lose your daughter, your money, your dignity, while they move on. He stopped pacing. So what do you suggest? We keep investigating. We gather evidence that can't be argued with. We figure out what they want and why they're doing this. I leaned in. Then we take them down, carefully, methodically, in a way they'll never see coming. Daniel looked at me. Really looked. Maybe for the first time in years. I didn't know you could be this cold. Neither did I admitted. But they hurt my son-in-law. They hurt me. And I won't let them get away with it. A knock cut through the room. We both froze. Mrs. Hartley, Detective Karen Gwynn, Financial Crimes Unit, Seattle Police Department. I need to speak with you about your husband's death. Daniel and I traded a glance. The police. Now. Just a moment, I called, mind racing. I pressed Olivia's phone into Daniel's hand. Hide this. Don't let anyone see it. He nodded and disappeared down the hall. I smoothed my apron, checked my reflection in the glass, and opened the door with a polite smile. A woman in her 40s stood on my porch, badge in hand, her expression professionally neutral. I'm sorry to bother you, Mrs. Hartley, she said. I'm reopening the investigation into your husband's death. New allegations have come in that we need to review. Allegations. I kept my voice steady by force of will. My husband died of a stroke 5 years ago. Yes, ma'am. But we've received information suggesting his death may not have been natural. She took out a notebook. Who had access to your husband's medications in the weeks before he died? The world tilted again. Murder. That was what she was implying. Suddenly the affair, the betrayal, the secret messages, all of it shifted into a darker light. I think, I said carefully, I should call my lawyer. Detective Nguyen smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's certainly you're right, Mrs. Hartley, but I should tell you, the complaint specifically names you as a suspect. She sat in my living room, notebook open, eyes cataloging every detail. Daniel returned from hiding the phone, face composed, playing the concerned son-in-law perfectly. I'd taught him to be steady, perhaps too well, given what we'd just uncovered. Mrs. Hartley, I need to ask about the days leading up to your husband's death, Kara said. Specifically, his medications. Richard had 3 prescriptions, I replied, keeping even. blood pressure medication, a statin for cholesterol, and baby aspirin, all prescribed by his cardiologist at Harborview. Is there a problem? His treating physician transferred 2 years ago. We haven't been able to verify all the records yet. She turned a page. Who had access to those medications? Just Richard and me. They were in our bathroom cabinet. And did you administer them? No. Richard took his own pills. He was perfectly capable. I stopped. Memory pricked. Wait, that's not entirely true. In the last few months, Olivia would sometimes help. She said she'd keep his schedule straight, pick up refills after work. She's in PR, but she always said the pharmacy was on her way. The detective's pen moved across the page. Your daughter had access to his medications. She visited regularly. She wanted to help. Even as I said it, the pieces shifted, arranging themselves into a darker picture. Mom, Daniel cut in, tight-voiced. Are you saying Olivia might have— I'm not saying anything, Kara interjected. I'm gathering information. She turned to Daniel. When did your wife start helping with your father-in-law's meds? I'm not sure. 6 months before he died, maybe longer. Daniel looked at me. I watched recognition flare in his eyes. She said she wanted to make sure he took them correctly. Said Mom sometimes forgot. I had never forgotten. Not once. But Olivia had convinced Richard I was slipping, that he needed her support. I'd been grateful then, relieved to have help as his health declined. Now I wondered what else she'd made him believe. Detective, who filed this complaint? I asked directly. Who accused me of murdering my husband? Kara hesitated, then closed her notebook. It was anonymous but very specific. Details about medication changes, arguments between you and your husband, and a financial motive. What financial motive? Daniel demanded. My in-laws were comfortable, not wealthy. According to the complaint, your husband carried a $2,000 online life insurance policy with your mother-in-law as the sole beneficiary. Silence. I felt Daniel's eyes on me. I didn't know about any life insurance policy, I said slowly. Richard handled our finances. After he died, I found the usual accounts, the lake house, his pension, but no policy. You didn't receive a payout? No, nothing. Kara's expression shifted, surprise or suspicion. That's interesting. The complaint says the policy was purchased 3 months before his death, with the premium paid from your joint account. 3 months before Richard died, the same period when his messages with Olivia turned desperate, when he'd written, I can't keep living this lie. I want to see our bank statements from that period, I said. Can you pull them? We're in the process of subpoenaing records, Kara said, but if you have online access— She does, Daniel said, pulling out his phone. Mom, same bank, right? I can help you log in. We worked together while Kara watched, pulling statements from 5 years ago. There it was, a $12,200 payment to Rainier Life and Annuity, dated 3 months before Richard's death. Categorized as medical in our bookkeeping, harmless looking in a year full of specialist bills. I never authorized this, I said, my voice shaking. I never even saw it. Who besides you and your husband had access to your accounts? Kara asked. Olivia, Daniel said quietly. After Dad's mini-stroke the year before, she offered to help manage bills. Mom was overwhelmed. Olivia said it would be one less thing to worry about. The detective's pen moved faster now. So your wife had access to your in-law's financial accounts, to his medications, and according to the complaint, she was present the day he died. We were all there, Daniel protested. It was a family dinner. Dad collapsed at the table. EMS took him to Harborview. They said it was a massive stroke. Nothing suspicious. But there was. I remembered that dinner with a new, ruthless clarity. Olivia had made Richard's favorite, ossobuco, with roasted vegetables. She was oddly attentive, urging him to eat, refilling his water, insisting he take his evening pills early because dinner had run late. And I remembered something else. something I'd filed away as grief's distortion at the time. "His pills," I said slowly. "That night Richard said they looked different, smaller. Olivia told him the pharmacy had switched manufacturers. Same medication, different brand." Kara leaned in. "Did you verify that?" "No. I trusted her. She's my daughter. Why would I question it?" "Mom," Daniel's voice cracked, "are you saying Olivia—" "I'm saying we need to know what was in those pills," I replied, looking at Kara. "Is it too late for toxicology?" "After 5 years it's hard, but not impossible if we exhume," Kara said, rising. "Mrs. Hartley, you need to understand. Right now you're still a person of interest. The complaint names you directly and reads like inside knowledge. If you're being framed, we need to know by whom and why." After she left, Daniel and I sat in stunned silence. Outside, autumn rain stitched gray lines across the glass. The lake went dark green. "We need to talk to Olivia," Daniel said at last. "Confront her. Now." "No." I stood, mind whirring like a spreadsheet. If she filed that anonymous complaint to frame me, confronting her just makes her wipe devices, create alibis, maybe disappear. So what do we do? Tonight, we follow her. The text says she's meeting P at Chelan View Lodge. We need to know what they're planning. Daniel hesitated. "Mom, if they're dangerous, then we stay hidden. We record everything, audio, photos, evidence they can't explain away." I grabbed my coat and slipped the SSD into the inside pocket. Richard's death may not have been natural. $2 million in insurance has been diverted, and someone is trying to hang it on me. I need to know why. We took Daniel's SUV, leaving my car at the lake house in case Olivia swung back to check. GPS carried us east on I-90, over a Snoqualmie Pass glazed with rain-turned ice, then south on US 97 along cold, dry hills toward Chelan. The pin dropped at a private road, a stone pillar marked Lodge Private. A timber and glass lodge sat back from the road, a gravel drive hidden from passers-by, wood and glass bones, green metal roof, a porch looking over a Black Mirror lake, lights glowed in the windows. "Olivia's SUV," Daniel whispered, pointing to the silver parked beside a newer pickup, "and Patrick's truck." We parked far back, slipped behind a line of cypress, then moved in on foot through the October cold. Through the glass I saw Olivia and Patrick at a small table, wine in hand, relaxed, intimate. Daniel lifted his phone, camera edged to the window frame. I stood beside him, my heart drumming like rain on a roof. "Can't believe the old lady fell for it," Patrick was saying, his voice carrying through the thin wood. The detective bought the whole story. "Anonymous complaint, just the right details, a clean financial motive. They'll have Evelyn in cuffs within a week," Olivia said, laughing, a sound with no heat. "She's too trusting. Richard used to say she was naive. That's why it was so easy to—" She stopped. Patrick raised a hand, glancing toward the glass. Had he seen us? We ducked, backs pressed to the siding. My knees screamed, but I didn't move. Daniel's hand gripped my sleeve. We barely breathed. "Thought I saw something," Patrick said. "Probably just a reflection. You're paranoid," Olivia replied. "No one knows this place. Even if Daniel suspected, he'd never find it. He's too busy being the dutiful husband, like Richard was the dutiful husband, until he wasn't," Patrick said, and they both laughed. The sound turned my blood to ice. This wasn't just an affair, it was a plan. "How long until the payout?" Patrick asked. 2-year contestability period ended ages ago. Once they arrest Evelyn, the carrier has no basis to deny, Olivia said, twirling her wine. "When they book Evelyn for poisoning Richard, I'll be devastated. The good daughter shattered that her mother could do such a thing. Rainier Life and annuity will pay into the estate, which I administer since the will was never updated." Patrick picked up the thread. "We split it as agreed. Hartley Investment Restoration Trust. Me 45, you 45, Hartley heirs 10 to keep the paperwork pretty. Daniel gets nothing. After Evelyn's in prison and the noise dies down, you file for divorce, claim emotional distress, you take half of Daniel's plus the insurance." Daniel's grip on my hand tightened until it hurt. Through the glass, I watched Patrick stand and move behind Olivia's chair, his hands on her shoulders. "You're clever," he said. "Using Evelyn's fear she was getting forgetful, easing her off Richard's meds. Genius." "And Richard." Olivia tipped her head back, voice cold. "He was easy to manipulate, especially after I told him Evelyn was complaining about him, wishing he'd hurry up and go. He believed his wife hated him. Everything got simpler." I had never said that, never thought it, but in those last months he had pulled away. I'd blamed illness, fear. Now I saw it. Olivia poisoning him against me, isolating him, making him breakable. "And the pills?" Patrick asked. "Digoxin," she said. "Easy if you know where to look. Mixed into his daily dose for 2 weeks before dinner. It builds." Then that night, one more hit in the sauce, enough to stop the heart. Autopsy reads stroke secondary to cardiac issues. A perfect match, no tox screen. "Until now," Patrick added. "If that detective gets smart and asks for an exhumation." "She won't," Olivia cut in. "She has her suspect, her motive, her timeline." Olivia stood and stepped into Patrick's arms. 5 months, we're rich. 6 months, we're together. And Evelyn will rot in prison for our crime. They kissed, and Daniel turned away, face twisted with pain and rage. We'd heard enough. Both of us had. We slipped back to the SUV. Inside, Daniel started the engine with shaking hands. "They killed him," he whispered. "Olivia murdered Richard. And Patrick helped her. And now they're framing you." "They made a mistake," I said softly, my voice as cold as the winter lake. "They told us everything. We have it recorded. We have evidence." "Then we take this to the police," Daniel said, pulling onto the road. "We'll show them the recording. Hand over Olivia's iPhone. Tell the police everything." "No," I cut in. "Not yet." He stared at me. "Mom, they killed Dad. They're trying to put you in prison. We have to—" "Daniel, think. That recording was made without their knowledge or consent. Washington requires all-party consent for recordings. A lawyer will get it thrown out. And the phone, I shouldn't be holding it. That can read as theft, an invasion of privacy." "So what do we do?" I looked through the big glass at the lake, at rain drifting like lead curtains, and felt something cold and steady settle in my chest. In Seattle, that's not just etiquette, it's criminal law. I used to teach that in professional ethics classes. SPD's financial crimes will trace the metadata chain, wire logs, bank push alerts, even the location baked into photos. Every digital wake throws a reflection, like marina lights trembling across Lake Union. "We make them confess," I said, "properly, legally, in a way that can't be dismissed or explained away." I turned to Daniel. "And we do it in front of witnesses who can't be intimidated or bought." "How?" "Your father's estate," I said slowly, the plan forming as I spoke. "It was never properly settled because the online policy went missing. We stage a formal will reading. Bring everyone into one room. You, Olivia, Patrick, the attorney, maybe even Detective Karen Ween. And then? Then we spring the trap," I said. "But first, we find out where the $2 million went, because wherever it went, that's where we'll find the last piece we need to destroy them." Daniel drove faster. Capitol Hill streetlights dragged black ink across the dash. We'd invite the Hartley family attorney, a notary, and if possible, a Rainier Life and Annuity rep on video to verify process. The people, the Mont Blancs, the leather notebooks, the perfect frame for truth to catch its own reflection. Downtown blurred behind us. The war had only begun. We spent that night in Daniel's penthouse office, surrounded by 5 years of records I'd hauled in from the lake house. Bank statements, credit cards, policy papers, everything Richard left behind. Olivia texted that she was at her sister's, then went dark. More likely, she was at Chelan View Lodge with Patrick, celebrating early. "There," Daniel said, pointing at his laptop at 3 a.m. "Mom, look." The policy application, filed under Hartley Financial, buried in a folder of scanned PDFs. Richard's signature at the bottom, but something was off. The loops were too perfect, too even. Richard's hand had always been hurried, inconsistent, the scribble of a man who'd signed thousands of transfer approvals. "That's not his signature," I said, certain. "Olivia forged it, or Patrick did. Can we prove it?" "Maybe. If we pull clean exemplars and get a handwriting expert," I said, rubbing tired eyes. "But that takes time, and we don't have much. Once financial crimes clears first steps, they might arrest me. From a jail cell, everything gets harder: warrants, appeals, legal fees." "You've changed, Mom. You're different than yesterday." "I'm fighting for my life," I said simply. "And for justice for your father. Whatever else Richard did, he didn't deserve to die like that. Slow poison, manipulation, betrayal." "Do you forgive him for the affair?" The question caught me off guard. Did I? Richard had been weak, vain, easy prey for the glow of someone younger. But Olivia was calculated, a predator. She targeted him. She'd come in through media circles, through Daniel, then seduced a lonely, tired man who felt invisible beside a wife who kept the trains running on time. "I don't know," I admitted. "That's a question for later. Right now we focus on survival." My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Drop the investigation, or your granddaughter pays the price." Ice moved through my veins. "Daniel, where's Sophie?" "At Olivia's mom's. She drove her over yesterday afternoon." "Why?" "She saw my face. Saw the iPhone. What is it?" I showed him the message. He went white and called Sophie's grandmother. A short, frantic exchange. "She's safe," Daniel said, relief breaking through. "Still asleep. I told her not to let Sophie out of her sight, and absolutely not to let Olivia pick her up without calling me first." Another text. "We know what you found at Chelan. Destroy the recording and forget everything, or the girl has an accident. You have until tomorrow night. They'd seen us, or guessed. Either way, we'd underestimated how far they'd go." "That's it," Daniel said, voice shaking with rage. "I'm calling the police. We tell them everything." "And they'll take Sophie while the police sort it out," I cut in. "Daniel, think. They're desperate now, cornered. That makes them dangerous. If we move too fast, if we spook them, then what's your plan? Because right now my daughter is being threatened by a murderer who also happens to be her mother." The words hung between us. Olivia was Sophie's mother. Whatever she'd done, whatever monster she'd become, she'd carried that child, raised her for 13 years. The courts would see that. So would Sophie. "We need leverage," I said, slow and clear. "Something so damning they can't threaten us, can't run, can't do anything but confess." "Like what?" "Like the life insurance money. Patrick said he's handling Richard's estate, that the payout flows through him, but the policy lists you as beneficiary." "So where did the money actually go?" Daniel pulled up the insurer's portal, logged in with data from the scanned application. It took 3 tries to guess the password. Olivia had used Sophie's name and birthday. Of course. The policy was active. Premiums auto-paid from our joint account, a draft I'd missed in a sea of medical bills. But the beneficiary had been changed 2 months after Richard's death. Not me. A trust, Hartley Investment Restoration Trust, managed by Patrick Hale, trustee. "That bastard," Daniel breathed. "He set up a trust in our name. He probably told the carrier he was administering the estate. Can we access the trust documents? Not without a court order, but—" Daniel's fingers flew. "Mom, he filed with the county clerk. Public record. I can pull it." The document bloomed on screen. A trust for the benefit of Hartley heirs, with Patrick as sole trustee, full discretion over distributions. In plain English, Patrick controlled the money. "This is fraud," I said. "The insurer thinks they paid into Richard's estate. Patrick diverted it into a trust he controls." "The trust probably only holds the $2 million, Daniel added, scrolling. "Look at the distribution schedule. Patrick authorized reasonable trustee fees up to 45%. Olivia listed as special consultant at 45. That leaves 10 for Hartley heirs. Us, I said quietly, on paper, to keep appearances clean. They'd planned to give us just enough to avoid suspicion. Keep the rest. Daniel's jaw nodded. I'm calling Patrick. Now. No. Let them think we're scared. Let them think the threat worked. An idea was forming, dangerous but necessary. What if we could make them move the money? Force them to do something that incriminates them? How? By making them panic. By threatening what they care about most, each other. I spent the next hour drafting a careful anonymous email. Cold, precise with times, accounts, and meeting places, crafted so Patrick would suspect Olivia, and Olivia would suspect Patrick. Not from my phone or Daniel's. We drove to the Lighthouse Cafe on the Kirkland Marina and used the public Wi-Fi to create a throwaway inbox. Then I sent an email to Patrick's personal address. I know about the digoxin. I know about Chelan View Lodge. I know about the $2,000 transfer into the Hartley Investment Restoration Trust. You have 24 hours to send $500,000 to the wallet below, or I go to SPD, Financial Crimes, with proof that Olivia poisoned Richard. She goes to prison. You go free. Your choice. A friend. I attached the crypto wallets Daniel had set up. Hard to trace. Anonymous. Mom, you're blackmailing him? Daniel asked, skeptical. I'm making him choose between money and Olivia. If he pays, we have proof he knows about the murder. If he doesn't but panics, he'll call Olivia and do something stupid. Either way, they make a mistake. And if he calls the police? He won't. That would mean admitting he knows about a murder, that he's been covering it up, and that he committed insurance fraud. I met my son-in-law's eyes. We're forcing them into the open. The response came 90 minutes later. Not to the burner email, but to my personal phone. Patrick's voice on a call. Evelyn, we need to talk. Just you and me. Tomorrow, noon, Chelan View Lodge. Come alone or Daniel. Disappears for a while. I looked across the dark wood table at Daniel. The trap was working, but it was also closing. I'll be there, I said, keeping my tone flat. Good. And Evelyn, don't be stupid. You're an old woman. You can't win this. He hung up. Daniel shook his head. No, absolutely not. You're not going alone. They've killed before. Which is why you're not coming, I cut in. If something happens to me, you're the only one left to protect Sophie. You stay with her. Keep her safe. Mom, listen, I'll bring a recorder. The legal kind. Washington is an all-party consent state, so I'll state clearly that the conversation is being recorded. If he continues, it's admissible. And if he kills you after you say that? He won't, because I'll hand him what he wants most. I took out a packet I'd prepared, written with Richard's silver Mont Blanc, a signed, dated confession. I'll admit I killed Richard. Say I knew about the affair, that I poisoned him out of jealousy. I'll say I'm ready to plead and go quietly. That's insane, Daniel said. You'd confess to murder? A false confession isn't a crime. And once Patrick agrees, once he admits on tape that there was a murder, that Olivia poisoned Richard, that they committed insurance fraud, I have everything. I withdraw the confession, reveal the recording, and we cuff them. Too risky. It's the only road left. I squeezed his hand. I've been underestimated all my life. By Richard, by Olivia, by Patrick. Let them keep thinking I'm just a widow living on memories until it's too late. The next morning, I went to SPD. I met Detective Kara Nguyen in Financial Crimes and showed her the threats about Sophie. She immediately wanted to assign protection. I think I know who sent them, I said carefully. I'm meeting them at noon. I want you to know in case something happens. Mrs. Hartley, if you're in danger, I'll be recording. All party consent. Legal. If I'm right about who's threatening me, the recording will prove it. Kara frowned, then nodded. Location? I gave her the Chelan View Lodge address and watched her write it down. If I don't call you by 1 o'clock, something's wrong, I said. The recorder has GPS. You'll be able to find me. That last part wasn't quite true. The device Daniel bought that morning had no GPS, but all Kara needed was a reason to come if things went sideways. At 11:30, Daniel dropped me half a mile from the lodge. He helped clip a tiny mic into the seam at my collar. "Promise me you'll be careful," he said, eyes bruised with no sleep. "I promise." I kissed his cheek. "Keep Sophie safe. If I don't come back, the SSD in the sandalwood music box, everything's there. Give it to Kara. Tell her the whole story." "Mom, I love you. You're a good father, Daniel. I'm proud of you." I squeezed his hand. "Now let me finish this." I walked the last half mile along a misted path, my knees protesting every step. Noon light but cold. Drizzle hung like smoke. Ahead, Chelan View Lodge sat quiet, glass walls facing a sheet of silver water. Patrick's Range Rover crouched under the eave. As I approached, the door opened. Patrick stood there, confident smile in place. Behind him, Olivia at the bar, eyes like glass. "Evelyn," Patrick said, syrup smooth. "Come in. We've got a lot to cover." I climbed the wooden steps, heartbeat steady, fingers brushing the collar where the mic hid. "Before we start," I said, clear and slow, "I want you both to know I'm recording this conversation for my protection." Patrick's smile didn't flicker. "Of course. We have nothing to hide." But when I stepped inside and saw Olivia's face, cold, calculating, triumphant, I knew I'd made a mistake. On the stone counter within her reach sat a gun. "Actually, Mom," Olivia said softly, PR voice dropped a register, "you're not recording anything. Your device is jammed. We've been listening to your calls, reading your emails. We know exactly what you planned. Patrick closed the door behind me. The lock clicked, dry and final. "Sit," Olivia said. "This offer runs one way." I stood in the center of the lodge, hands steady despite the gun. 68 years had taught me this. Panic is the enemy of survival. They expected fear. I gave them curiosity. "How long have you been listening?" I asked, calm. Patrick laughed, pleased with himself. "Since yesterday. After you left Chelan, I tagged Daniel's SUV and cloned your phone remotely. Shockingly easy if you know the right people. We heard every call, read every email, watched you weave your little trap." "Then you know I told Detective Nguyen where I'd be," I said. "She's expecting my call in an hour." "Actually, she isn't," Olivia slid in smoothly. "I called her from your phone this morning. Canceled. Told her you weren't feeling well. She was very understanding." She stood, circling, but kept distance. "You're smart. I'll give you that. Smarter than Dad ever was, but you're old, alone, outmatched. Sit." Patrick gestured. I sat, mapping the room. One door, two big panes to the water. Patrick blocking the exit. Olivia within easy reach of the gun. It was staged. "Here's how this goes," Olivia said, patient as a crisis comms briefing. "You write a confession, a real one. You killed Richard after you discovered the affair. You poisoned him with digoxin you obtained from—" She paused, calculating. "A Canadian P.O. box, under a fake name. You remember, right?" The same script they'd been spinning. "You confess to murder," Olivia continued. "Then you write a suicide note. Grief, shame, fear of prison. You drove to Chelan, where Dad had been happy, and you ended it." "With what?" I asked. "I didn't bring pills." Patrick pulled a bottle from his jacket. "Sleeping pills. The kind I take every night. We lifted them from your medicine cabinet yesterday. More than enough." They'd been in my home, again, as they'd invaded my marriage, my trust, my family. "And if I refuse?" I asked, though I knew. "Then we shoot you and stage the suicide anyway," Patrick said, voice like steel. "Messier. More questions. This is cleaner." "Except Daniel knows the truth," I said evenly. "He heard you confess in this very lodge. He has Olivia's iPhone, the message history, photos, transfers." "Had," Olivia corrected, savoring the past tense. "I wiped it remotely this morning. Everything. And your recording? Inadmissible in Washington without consent. You used to teach professional ethics. You know the law." She was right. In trying to be perfectly legal, I'd telegraphed every move. "Daniel won't stop," I said. "He knows you killed his father." "Daniel is emotional. Impulsive," Olivia sneered. "He'll grieve you. He'll suspect me for a while, but without proof, what can he do? Eventually he moves on. People do. And Sophie needs her mother." At my granddaughter's name, ice crawled my spine. I kept my face still. "You'd really do this?" I asked. "I murder your husband's mother in front of each other?" "We've done worse," Patrick said, bored. "Richard was harder. Weeks of careful dosing, watching symptoms. This is almost merciful by comparison." "Besides," Olivia stepped closer, eyes bright and empty, "you're not really my mother anymore. Are you? Not the woman I knew. That woman died the day you learned the truth about Richard. The woman sitting here now is bitter, vengeful, unrecognizable. Daniel will mourn the mother-in-law he remembers, not the woman you've become." Olivia's words were honed to cut, to make me doubt myself. But I'd learned something in these terrible days. Transformation isn't weakness. The naive, trusting Evelyn was gone. In her place stood someone harder, clearer, more dangerous than Olivia imagined. I needed time. Detective Kara Nguyen might not come, but Daniel knew where I was. He'd wait for my call. And when it didn't come— "What are you thinking?" Olivia snapped, voice like a blade. "Daniel? He's busy. I just texted from your phone, told him to pick up Sophie immediately for a school emergency. He's probably halfway to Tacoma by now." She smiled. "By the way, your granddaughter's fine. No emergency. Daniel's just running in circles while we finish things here." They thought they'd mapped every exit, or believed they had. "You're wondering if there's a way out," Patrick said, reading my face. "There isn't. We've planned this for years, Evelyn. Even before Richard died, we knew you'd be a problem. Too sharp, too persistent. Richard was supposed to revise his will, move everything into a trust we control. But the old man kept putting it off. After Christmas, after Sophie's birthday, after the rainy season." "So you killed him before he could change anything," I said softly, the pieces locking into place. "We accelerated the timeline," Olivia admitted. "He was getting sentimental, talking about making things right with you, confessing. He was weak. We couldn't risk it." She picked up the handgun, checked it casually, then set it back down. The message was clear. "Write the confession," Patrick said, tossing a sheet and a pen across the table. "We don't have all day." I lifted my silver Mont Blanc, the wedding gift from Richard, but instead of writing what they wanted, I looked straight at Olivia. "Did you ever love Daniel? Even a little?" She hesitated half a beat. "Why does that matter?" "I'm about to die. Humor a dying woman's curiosity." Olivia was quiet a moment, then shrugged. "Daniel was a means to an end, a doorway into your family, into Richard, into a clean, polished life. He was easy to manipulate. Still is." "And Richard?" "Pathetic," she said, curling a smile. "A vain man desperate to feel young. He believed I loved him, believed he was special." She laughed. "The only person I've ever loved is Patrick. We've been together since high school. Everything else was a role." "Even Sophie?" The word came out sharper than I intended. "She was necessary," Olivia said coolly. "Leverage, position, useful." Hearing my granddaughter reduced to a tool snapped something inside me, but my hands stayed steady, my voice even. "One more question. The anonymous complaint to the police? Your backup plan?" "Insurance," Patrick nodded. "If you got too close, we'd make you the jealous poisoner. Just enough truth that everyone would buy it. Access to meds, financial motive, opportunity." "Thorough," I said, dropping my eyes to the page. "I assume you want a very detailed confession. Names, dates, method." I began to write. My hand did not shake, but it wasn't a suicide note. I, Evelyn Hartley, being of sound mind and body, declare the following to be true testimony. Across the table, they couldn't see the opening lines. On October 6, 2025, at Chelan View Lodge on Lake Chelan, present were Patrick Hale and Olivia Hartley Cross. They threatened to kill me unless I confessed to murdering my husband, Richard Hartley. I kept writing, kept them talking. Tell me about the digoxin. Where did you get it? Friends in Canada, Olivia said, flushed with her own triumph. Ordered online, picked up at a P.O. box under a fake name. Untraceable. And the trust? The insurance? My idea, Patrick said, smug. Hartley Investment Restoration Trust. Used the old will, had me as executor. He signed thinking it was the lodge deed. Forged his signature on the $2 million policy. Simple when you know what you're doing. Excellent, I murmured, still writing. Method, motive, sequence. A statement, not a farewell. Are you finished? Olivia snapped. This is taking too long. Almost, I said. And as I set the final line, I moved. They'd missed one detail. The handgun on the stone counter was angled toward Olivia, not me. Its grip pointed toward the center of the table. Too far to snatch. Close enough to knock. One last thing, I told her, meeting her eyes. You should know I sent something you can't erase. Something that ruins you. You're lying, Olivia hissed, but doubt flashed. Richard's lawyer, Mr. Brennan. I sent him a sealed envelope 2 days ago. Instructions to open if anything happened to me. Inside is a full account, copies of your messages, bank records, and a timeline of Richard's murder. It was a lie, but Olivia didn't know that. She's lying, Patrick said, but he looked at Olivia. Doubt leaked. Am I? I gave a cold smile. You've been glued to my phone, my email, my digital trail. But paper? In-person meetings? I'm 68. I know how to live without leaving footprints. Olivia lunged for the gun. I flipped the table. The edge slammed up, papers flying. The gun clattered across the floor. Olivia stumbled. Patrick rushed me. I pivoted, caught the knob. Locked, of course. Patrick grabbed my arm. I rotated my hips, used his momentum, the muscle memory of a lifetime. My elbow found his solar plexus. He folded. Olivia had the gun again, hands shaking. Don't move, she shrieked. Don't! The window behind her exploded inward. Daniel crashed through a rain of glass, shoulders slamming her back. The shot was deafening, the bullet buried in the ceiling. He wrenched the weapon from her grip, his face blood-streaked with glass, but his hands iron. Outside, Mom, he shouted. Now! Through the broken frame, silhouettes surged. Detective Kara Nguyen, 2 Chelan County deputies, moving fast. Patrick lunged for the side door. I gave a petty little flick of my foot, enough to trip him. The door blew open. Commands overlapped. Steel cuffs. Miranda. Everything after that moved quickly. Olivia and Patrick, restrained. The statement I'd written, carefully bagged as evidence. Daniel's phone playing the recording he'd made from outside the open window before he went through it. Every admission, every word. Kara looked at me, half admiration, half exasperation. Mrs. Hartley, you could have been killed. But I wasn't, I said. My hands started to shake, delayed tremor, but I stayed on my feet. And now you have what you need. The outside recording is admissible, she confirmed. Daniel was on public ground. The window was open. No reasonable expectation of privacy. And you announced you were recording. We have probable cause. I looked at Daniel, my reckless, foolish, wonderful son-in-law, who'd smashed through a window to pull me out of the muzzle's mouth. I told you to stay with Sophie. I took her to SPD first, he said, grinning through the blood. Told Kara everything. Played last night's Chelan recording. Might not hold up in court, but it was enough for a warrant. We listened outside for 20 minutes before we moved. You heard it all. Every word. His face hardened as he watched Olivia get loaded into the cruiser, remembering how she'd called Sophie useful. That wound would be the slow one. Olivia met my eye through the patrol car glass. No remorse, no fear, just ice. "You won't win," she shouted. "I'll hire the best lawyers. The door slammed, cutting off the threat. Patrick was quieter, defeated as they put him in another car. "We would have gotten away with it," he muttered. "No," I said loudly enough to Carrie. "You made the same mistake everyone makes. You underestimated an old woman." Kara gave a thin smile. "Mrs. Hartley, I'll need you at the station for a full statement." "Of course. But first," I turned to Daniel, "call your mother. Ask her to keep Sophie tonight. She doesn't need to know yet. Give her one more day of childhood." Daniel nodded, eyes bright, and I rode in the back of Kara's car. Not arrested, just transported. Outside, the Chelan afternoon tilted to silver. The lake shivered with light. On the shards of broken glass, the sky reflected like a verdict. Truth had won. 3 months later. January. Rain fell like mist over Lake Washington. I stood in my glass and wood kitchen, looking out at the flat mirror of the water, remembering 43 years of marriage. The house was quiet in a way it hadn't been for years, maybe since before Olivia stepped into her ambition. The trials moved fast, surprisingly so. Their lawyers advised pleas the moment they saw the stack. Daniel's exterior recording, my handwritten statement, the Hartley Investment Restoration Trust papers, and the forged $2,000 policy. The picture was complete. Olivia Hartley Cross pled guilty to second-degree murder and insurance fraud. 25 years. Patrick Hale pled to accomplice to murder, fraud, and conspiracy. 18 years. Appeals denied. The $2 million was recovered and returned to Richard's estate. To me, his legal widow. Daniel and Sophie were learning how to breathe in a house with no lies. The rain eased. A pale seam of light opened on the lake. I pulled 2 cappuccinos, set one beside me, then lifted it and drank them both. Age doesn't make you weak. It teaches you when to strike. $2 million, money I never wanted. It was bought with my husband's life. I placed most of it into a trust in Richard's name for Sophie's education, kept enough to maintain the glass and wood house on the lake, and to be sure I'd never be a burden to Daniel in old age. But the real victory didn't live in courtrooms. It lived in the quiet after, watching my family slowly, painfully begin to knit itself back together. I heard footsteps on the wet deck, soles tapping through rain puddles. The slider whispered open, and Sophie stepped in, cheeks pink from the cold, eyes bright. "Grandma, the water looks like a mirror this morning. The dock lights stretch all the way to the middle. Can we build a blanket fort in the living room?" "We can," I said, smiling, taking her dripping raincoat. At 13, she was pinned between childhood and adolescence, wrestling with everything that had happened, the truth about her mother, the divorce, the criminal trials. It had almost broken her. But children are sturdier than we give them credit for. Daniel followed her in with grocery bags. He'd moved back to the lake house for now, sorting out next steps. The place where Olivia once staged perfection had become their refuge, and my house was less lonely with the 2 of them inside it. "Sophie, change out of those wet clothes and come down for hot cocoa," Daniel said, the automatic cadence of a father that made me smile. He's a good father, better than he believes. When Sophie headed upstairs, Daniel set the bags on the stone counter and looked at me with a face I knew well, the one that meant he needed to talk. "Evelyn, Olivia's attorney called this morning." My hand stilled on the espresso wand. "What does she want?" "She wants to see Sophie, says she has parental rights. That keeping her away is cruel punishment." The gall of it closed my throat. After everything, the poisoning, the lies, the cold admission that Sophie was merely a piece on the board, she wanted access to her. "What does Sophie want?" I asked, because that was what mattered. "She says she never wants to see her again. She's angry, hurt. She feels betrayed." Daniel sank into a chair. "But what if she changes her mind later? What if she resents me for keeping them apart?" I sat across from him and took his hand. "Daniel, you're her father. You make the decision that protects her now, today. If she changes her mind when she's older, when she's ready to face that relationship, you'll support her. But right now, she's a child who just learned her mother orchestrated a murder. She needs stability, safety, time to heal." The lawyer says Olivia's in therapy, that she's remorseful. Olivia is a sociopath, I said, flat. I sat across from her at Chelandview Lodge and looked in her eyes. There was nothing there, Daniel. No real feeling, no remorse, only calculation. Whatever she tells her lawyer, whatever show she puts on for a parole board someday, it's technique. He was quiet a long beat. Before all this, how did you know? Did you ever suspect she wasn't who she pretended to be? It was the question I'd asked myself for months. Were there signs? Warnings I'd missed that might have kept Richard alive? I thought she was cold sometimes, I admitted. Too perfect, too controlled. I chalked it up to work style, to PR armor. I thought I was being judgmental, old-fashioned. I squeezed his hand. We see what we expect to see, what we want to see. You saw a complete family. I saw a diligent daughter-in-law stepping in when I was tired, and Sophie saw her mother. The cruelest part. Children should be able to trust their parents. Exactly, Daniel said. She stole that from her. Upstairs, Sophie's footsteps crossed the hall. Rain ticked softly on the roof. She's doing better, Daniel said. The therapist says she's processing in healthy ways. But, Evelyn, I'm furious. With Olivia, with Patrick, with Richard for starting this mess. Some days I can barely function. That's normal, I said. Anger's part of grief. You're mourning a stack of losses. The father you thought you had, your marriage, your trust in the person you loved. It takes time. How are you so calm? Richard cheated on you, lied for years. Doesn't that make you furious? Oh, it does, I said, feeling the familiar burn of betrayal. I'm angry at Richard every day, at his weakness, his vanity, his willingness to blow up a family for a double life. But I'm also... I searched for it. I'm also free. Free of the weight of a marriage built on lies. Free of wondering why he seemed distant, why he stopped really seeing me. Now I know. And knowing hurts. But it's better than the uncertainty I lived with. Do you miss him? I miss the man I thought he was, I said. I miss the partner I believed I had, but that man may never have existed. Not fully. The real Richard was someone who could be seduced, who could lie, who could betray the people who loved him most. So no, I don't miss Richard. I grieve what I lost, but I don't want it back. Daniel nodded slowly. That's how I feel about Olivia, the woman I married, if she ever existed. I loved her. But the woman who used our daughter as leverage, who would have let you die in that lodge? I don't know that person. I never did. We sat in companionable quiet, the kind you earn through shared wounds and deep understanding. Outside, rain dappled Lake Washington, blurring the old scars with a new possibility. Grandma? Dad? Sophie called from upstairs. Can we make hot chocolate and watch a movie? Of course, I called back, standing. Come help me. I warmed milk and whisked cocoa. Rain and the soft hiss of the machine braided in the kitchen. I pulled 2 cappuccinos out of habit, set one aside to catch the light. Sophie chattered about school, her friends, the game she wanted for her birthday, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not happiness. Not yet. The wounds were fresh, the losses, deep, but peace. The calm that comes from knowing the truth, from surviving the unsurvivable, standing on solid ground after years of walking mirrors warped by lies. That evening, after the movie and dinner, after Sophie went to bed and Daniel retreated to the study to call the lawyer, the therapist, the school counselor, I walked the glass hallway alone. I touched Richard's silver Mont Blanc, looked at the frames on the wall, pictures from days I'd believed were happy, or at least that I'd let myself believe were. I'd taken down Olivia's photos, but kept the ones with Sophie. She deserves to keep the good pieces of her childhood, however complicated. In Richard's study, I found the sandalwood music box, the one with the hidden compartment where I'd kept the SSD. I'd turned everything over to the police, but under the velvet liner sat an envelope I'd been avoiding for months, his personal effects from the hospital, wallet, wedding band. I opened it slowly, forcing myself to face this last shard of him. The ring gleamed, simple gold, our date engraved. I'd locked mine away. His deserved the same. Beneath the ring, something unexpected. A sealed letter on Hartley Finance Group letterhead, paper yellowed at the edges. My name on the envelope in his real hand, messy, rushed, not the neat forgery Olivia had used. My hands shook as I opened it. My dearest Evelyn, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm a coward for not saying it to your face. I've done terrible things. I betrayed you in ways I can't fully explain or excuse. I started something I couldn't stop, and it poisoned everything good in my life. You deserved better than me. Honesty, fidelity, respect. Instead, I gave you lies and treated your trust carelessly. I let vanity and weakness destroy the best thing I ever had, your love. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that whatever happened, whatever you discover, you were never the problem. The problem was always me, my cowardice, my selfishness, my failure to value what I had until it was too late. You are remarkable, Evelyn, stronger than I ever was, kinder than I deserved, clearer-eyed than I admitted. I hope you find peace after I'm gone. I hope you find happiness. You've earned it 1,000 times. And please, don't trust anyone who signs Hartley, except yourself. Richard. I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and tucked it under the wood. Outside, the rain thinned. The lake went to mist. I stood before the glass and caught my reflection. Memory and evidence, both survive. In the morning, I'd text the attorney. It isn't time for Sophie to see her mother. She needs reason first, compassion later. I frothed 2 cappuccinos, one for me. I set the other across the table and called it what it was, hope. Age doesn't make us weak. It teaches us to choose the moment to strike. I'm sorry for everything, but most of all, I'm sorry I wasn't the man you believed I was. Richard. The letter blurred as tears filled my eyes, the first I'd shed for Richard since learning the truth. Not grief for his passing, but grief for the waste of it all. Wasted years, wasted love, the wasted promise of what we might have been if he'd been honest. If he'd been brave enough to face his frailty instead of running to Olivia's arms. He'd known he was dying. The letter was dated weeks before his death, tucked where I'd only find it at the end. Did he suspect he was being poisoned? Or did he simply know his heart was failing and want to confess before it was too late? I'll never know, and perhaps it doesn't matter. I folded the letter and slipped it back into the sandalwood box. A kind of ending, an admission from the far side that I hadn't been crazy or paranoid or the cold, neglectful wife Olivia invented. But it changed nothing about what had happened, or what needed to happen next. I had a lake house to keep, a granddaughter to guide, a son-in-law to steady through divorce and damage. I had a life to rebuild, not from the ashes of lies, but on the bedrock of truth I'd paid dearly to uncover. That night, after I locked the sliders and paused by Sophie's room, her face turned toward the blue-green bar of dock light rippling on the ceiling, I made a decision. I would stay here, on Lake Washington. I would not let Olivia and Patrick drive me from the home I shaped, the glass I polished, the memories I tended. They had taken enough. They would not take this, and I would use everything I'd learned about deception, manipulation, the lacquered darkness beneath pretty surfaces to make sure my family was never this fragile again. I would teach Sophie to ask questions, to verify, to trust her instincts. I would teach her that kindness is not naivete, that trust must be earned, that family is defined by actions, not blood. I would be the grandmother she needs, steady, protective, unshakable, the woman who brought down killers with nothing but her wits. In bed, with lake wind whispering through the bamboo and fine rain tapping the roof, I thought about age and wisdom, survival and strength. Olivia had called me old as an insult, as if age meant weakness. She learned too late that age means experience. It's patience. It's the long game. It's the ability to see the whole board while the young chase the sugar rush of now. It's knowing when to strike and when to wait, when to show your hand and when to sit in silence, when to trust and when to check everything twice. I am 68. I have walked through betrayal, an attempted murder, and a frame-up. I toppled a conspiracy with intelligence, stamina, and surprise. I am old, but this kind of old is dangerous in ways youth can't imagine, and I will not be underestimated again. Outside, the rain kept polishing the lake into a new mirror every minute, a promise of renewal. Spring would come, as it always does. New life would press up through the damp and cold. Life would go on, and I would be here, watching, guarding, choosing truth over comfortable illusions. The phone on my nightstand buzzed. A text from Daniel downstairs. "Thank you for fighting for us, for being stronger than any of us knew. We love you." I smiled and typed back, "I love you both. Sleep. Tomorrow we start rebuilding. Tomorrow and every day after. Because survivors do that. We adapt. We overcome. We rebuild on firmer ground." The glass house settled into quiet. Somewhere in the dark, Richard's shadow might linger, but I no longer felt haunted. The truth had exorcised those ghosts. I was free. Wounded, yes. Changed, certainly, but free. And in that freedom, something unexpected, not instant happiness, but the promise of it. The knowledge that I'd come through the worst and emerged not shattered, but forged and tempered. Age doesn't make us weak. It teaches us when to strike. And if anyone ever threatens my family again, they'll learn what I learned in that brutal week. Never underestimate a 68-year-old woman with nothing left to lose and everything to protect. I closed my eyes. For the first time in months, sleep came without nightmares. The mystery was closed. The family was safe. Justice stood in the light, and Evelyn Hartley, grandmother, widow, survivor, had won.